What's going on, everyone? Tommy P here with a naturally obsessed look into round one of the Eastern Conference NBA playoffs. Now, I want to preface this video by saying I am not a basketball expert. I'm just a fan who's naturally obsessed. Today's video is sponsored by Crush the Rankings. Crush the Rankings provides elite and award-winning search engine optimization and web development. Head to crushtherankings.com today for a free SEO audit. Simply go to crushtherankings.com and enter your website on the homepage. Link down in the description below. Now, the Eastern Conference playoffs are filled with storylines. You know, if you're a fan of said team, you're pretty familiar with the storyline. I'm going to get into it a little bit, but I'm just going to give a breakdown of my opinion and what I have seen so far this season and what I expect in the playoffs. So the first series we're going to look into is the Miami Heat versus the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I've been very vocal all year long that I think the Miami Heat may be the biggest pretender in the NBA simply because I do not like their play when it comes to clutch time situations. Jimmy Butler, love me some Jimmy Butler. He's a dog. He's a mean dog, but you cannot deny that he's one of, if not the worst clutch time shooter in the NBA this year. And I love me some Bam Adebayo, but you have some limitations with Bam Adebayo defensively. One of the best rebounding big men in the Eastern Conference, no doubt about it. Great offensively, but defensively he has limitations. And I love what Kyle Lowry has brought to this team. Love it. This is Jimmy Butler's team, but Kyle Lowry, you are an NBA champion. You've led your own team for many, many, many years. You need to bring that leadership to this team. You're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference for a reason. You've played phenomenal basketball all year long. Now, this is your time because you're the one on this roster who has success. This is Kyle Lowry's time, and the Heat franchise, the Heat organization, need to show why they brought Kyle Lowry on this team. So, that being said, for the Miami Heat, you know, I do love Bam Adebayo. I do love Jimmy Butler. I love Kyle Lowry. But the biggest piece for me that's going to be the difference maker is a Tyler Hero. You know, Tyler Hero, his rookie year, had a phenomenal postseason. Phenomenal. And last year in the postseason, he disappeared. But if you look at it even further, in the regular season last year, he did not follow up his phenomenal rookie year with a solid second year. But this year, leading the NBA in bench points, I have him as sixth man of the year. And I have very, very little doubt that Tyler Hero is going to show up big time in these playoffs. And that being said, looking at Atlanta's roster, you know, Trae Young is Trae Young. That man is a threat to put up 30 and 10 on you on a nightly basis. Love me some John Collins. Danilo Gallinari has been great for them. Kevin Huerter's been great for them. I fear that this injury to Clint Capella is going to make them even bigger underdogs than they already are. Clint Capella is one of the most underrated big men in the entire NBA. That man is a just tenacious rebounder, very underrated offensively, and you take him out of the lineup, you get a lot smaller. You get a lot smaller, and now you're forced to throw out a small ball lineup. And I just don't think that's a great matchup for the Hawks against the Miami Heat. So that being said, assuming that Clint Capella is going to be hampered by this injury, I'm taking the Miami Heat in 6 games, possibly 5. It all depends on the injury status of Clint Capella. Going into what is the biggest series I have questions about in the Eastern Conference is the 76ers versus the Toronto Raptors. And I say I have questions about because it comes down to one thing for me, and that is the status of Matisse Thybulle. Matisse Thybulle is one of, but I believe, the 76ers' best defensive player. You can make a very strong argument for Joel Embiid, and I'm not going to get mad at you for that, but Matisse Thybulle is just a tenacious defender, always on ball defense. He's always there, and he is not vaccinated. Toronto has strict vaccination mandates that prohibit non-vaccinated players from playing. So, Matisse Thybulle is immediately ineligible to play at least, at a minimum, Games 3 and Game 4. And I just don't know how they're going to, with that ruckus home crowd that Toronto has, how are they going to get in a consistent defensive rhythm in Toronto without Matisse Thybulle? Could they steal a game in Toronto? Absolutely. Absolutely. Could they come back Game 5 up 3-1 with a chance to close it out in Philly? Absolutely. But on paper, it's a much closer matchup because I could also see the Raptors coming to Philly Game 5 up 3-1. If you're Toronto, you just have to hope the first two games you split at least 1-1. Tyrese Maxey, huge for them off the bench. Tobias Harris, I feel, has finished out the season very strong. And Joel Embiid, I have him as MVP of the NBA this year. The man is just one of, if not the best two-way player in the entire National Basketball Association. And then my biggest question mark with the Toronto Raptors is who's their go-to? And instantly you'd say, oh, it's Pascal Siakam. Understandable that you'd say that, but many others would say Fred VanVleet. And it's understandable that they say that if you look at their number breakdown. So they are a very solid and consistent team. I really, really like this Raptors roster, especially with players such as Precious Achiuwa, OG Anunoby. Love Scotty Barnes, my rookie of the year. Just had a phenomenal rookie season. But they don't have a go-to scorer. If you have a guy who, for example, a Joel Embiid in this series, he's your go-to. If you're down 2, less than 20 seconds to go, you can almost guarantee that ball's going to Joel Embiid. And tell me right now, would you count out Joel Embiid in that situation? Because I sure as hell won't. So, because I don't know if they have a go-to scorer, because the best player in this series is on the Philadelphia 76ers, it's literally that simple for me. In a close series, who has the best player? The 76ers, and it's because of that I'm taking the Philadelphia 76ers in 7 games. Now we go on to the reigning NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Chicago Bulls. Now, before I get into it too much, I want to say that I think this series is going to be much more competitive than the general public does. And when you hear my prediction, you're going to be like, I thought you said it was going to be a close series. So let me just explain. I think these games are going to be competitive. I think they're going to be much closer than most everyone else does. But the Milwaukee Bucks have not 1, not two, but three of the NBA's best closers this season, and probably the best closer in the entire NBA in Giannis Antetokounmpo. But you can also count on Chris Middleton to close a game out. You can count on Drew Holiday to close a game out. The addition of Brook Lopez coming back from injury has been huge. Love what Bobby Portis brings to this team. This team gives everyone headaches, and there's a reason why they're favored to come out of the East. And you put that against a team that young, with some vets. You had DeMar DeRozan, who for most of the year looked like an MVP candidate. I had him as an MVP candidate. Definitely fell off in the second half of the season, but there was only so much that this roster could handle once, Lonzo Ball went down. They were without Alex Caruso for a good chunk of the year. Zach LaVine has been phenomenal. But I put them in a very similar situation that I put, a Cleveland Cavaliers team. Very promising young talent. Very well coached. But I don't think they have anywhere near enough to get it done. So, that being said, I'm taking the Milwaukee Bucks to win in 5 games. And now the last series of the Eastern Conference playoffs, round 1, is the Boston Celtics versus the Brooklyn Nets. So if you would have asked me this pre-Robert Williams injury, I'm taking the Celtics. But without Robert Williams, a leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year, in my opinion, you're going to throw out Al Horford. You're going to throw out Daniel Tice. They are going to attack the paint, and they're going to attack the paint very successfully. And I love me some Jaylen Brown. I love me some Jason Tatum. Marcus Smart, another leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. This Boston Celtics team is the #1 defense in the entire National Basketball Association. And without Robert Williams, they still gave people fits defensively. But, and this is a very big but, you're dealing with who I believe to be one of the top 2, top 3 players in the entire NBA in Kevin Durant. You're dealing with one of the most electric players, one of the most box office talents the NBA has ever seen in Kyrie Irving. Patty Mills has been absolutely phenomenal for this team. Goran Dragic has been a huge addition to this team. Seth Curry has been a huge addition to this team. Bruce Brown has he's arrived. Nick Claxton. Andre Drummond. Most of these guys we thought were done. Some of these guys, like Bruce Brown, you see him lighting it up this year, you're like, who? I understand that this team does not play a lick of defense. I understand that this team has a very, very suspect bench because the minutes are out of whack. You have games where Kevin Durant will play 35 minutes. Then you have games where he plays 46 minutes. Kyrie's all over the place. But when push comes to shove, I don't think the Celtics will be able to contain this high-powered offense without Robert Williams over the course of 7 games, which is why I have the Brooklyn Nets winning the series in 7 games. So my predictions again: Miami Heat in 6, Philadelphia 76ers in 7, Milwaukee Bucks in 5, and the Brooklyn Nets in 7. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.